Hey everyone, and welcome back to the PTG Rail Routes Learning Series. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the South Western Expressways route, which is available from Just Trains. I'm going to be driving a journey in a custom-created scenario, following the real-life timetable of train 2 Charlie 06, which is the 6:48 AM service from Bristol Temple Meads through to Westbury. I've set this scenario in British Rail days. As you can see there, I'm in a regional railways liveried train, but the timetable that I'm using is the current day timetable. The total journey distance is around 28.25 miles, and our stops along the way include Keynsham, Oldfield Park, Bath Spa, Freshford, Avoncliffe, Bradford-on-Avon, Trowbridge, and finally Westbury. The train that I'm driving on this journey is the Class 150/2, which is a train that probably needs little introduction on this channel for regular viewers of my videos, as it's appeared in quite a number of videos in the past, and I'm using the Armstrong Powerhouse version of this train. So the Class 150 has been in service since 1984, and was manufactured between 1984 and 1987 at Brell, York, with a total of 137 units produced in 3 different subclasses. They are formed of 2 or 3 coaches per train, though I think the Class 150/2, they're only formed of 2 coaches per unit. They are currently operated by a number of different train operating companies within the UK, but as already mentioned, this scenario is set in British Rail days, so at that time the Class 150s were all operated by the Regional Railways division of British Rail. The maximum speed of these trains is 75 miles per hour, with a power output of 286 horsepower per engine. In the cab of the Class 150, there's a few things I now need to do to set up ready for departure. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to turn the master key by pressing the Shift and W keys. And now that I've done that, I'm going to move the reversing handle into the neutral position. Then as I do that, I'm going to reset the AWS self-test sequence. So now I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is turn on the driver safety device by pressing Ctrl and D. And now I'm going to turn on the instrument lights by pressing I. So you can see there we've got illumination on the speedometer and the brake gauges. And now over this side I'm going to turn on the marker lights, I'm going to turn off the tail lights, and then I'm going to press Shift and H to turn the headlights onto the daytime setting. Also, as the signal ahead is clear, I'm going to turn off the driver reminder appliance. And now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is open the windows here for improved sounds over what you would normally hear with the windows closed. Let's just quickly go through the controls here now. So in front of us we've got the brake handle, which is a standard West Code 3-step brake. So you've got steps 1, 2, step 3, which is full service, and then a 4th step, which is the emergency setting. With the braking on this journey today, I've set the scenario in autumn, so there's a chance that we could see some wheel slip, which is going to be quite interesting to see how well I can slow down for the station stops, and you'll particularly notice wheel slip when I actually start the train moving. If we continue around the cab here, we've got the horn control there, which is a 2-tone horn, controllable with the spacebar and the B key. Just above that we've got the brake gauges, so as usual it's the needle on the right that's the brake cylinder pressure gauge, and that indicates how hard the brakes are applied. So if I move the brake handle down a position now, you can see that needle has fallen, and when the needle is pointing at 0, then the brakes are fully applied. Just to the right of that we've got the speedometer measured in miles per hour. As already mentioned, the maximum speed on this unit is 75 miles per hour, which we will certainly be able to get up to on this journey today. And you may notice that the speedometer swings quite a bit when we've got wheel slip, so when I'm accelerating, if the wheels slip, then it will suddenly jump and read a higher speed before resetting back down to our current speed. And when braking, it's actually possible that you could be doing, say, 70 miles an hour, put the brakes on, and then the wheel slip is so bad that the speedometer drops all of the way to 0 and reads 0 miles per hour because the wheels have fully locked. And now just below that we've got the throttle control, which in the Class 150 is a 7-step controller. And when I start the train moving, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to notch 3 of power, and then once we're actually moving I will gradually increase the notches all of the way to full power. But as mentioned, because I'm driving in the autumn, I won't be able to increase the power as quickly as I normally would do so. Now, one other thing I'd just like to mention here is that normally I would set the destination boards on this particular unit, but when I was cycling through the destinations earlier that are available, unfortunately Westbury wasn't in the list, so I'm going to be leaving the destination board on the front of this unit blank for this journey today. So now we've had a look around the cab and we've set up the train ready for departure, let's just take another quick look outside and then start out on our journey towards Westbury. Departing away from Bristol Temple Meads, the starting speed limit here is 25 miles per hour, with around 4 3/4 miles to go to our first stop, which is Keynsham. So I'm just in notch 4 of power here to bring our speed up towards 25, and then once we're doing 25 I'm going to idle the power and just allow the train to coast until we're able to accelerate further. We're coasting nicely here at 25 miles per hour. This train doesn't seem to lose too much speed when we're at low speeds, so you really don't need to add any power to maintain the speed when you're on a level gradient. And so just after crossing the points here, the speed limit is going to be going up to 90 miles per hour, which of course means our maximum speed of 75. Now going up to full power to accelerate up towards the speed limit of 75 miles per hour here, with 4 1/4 miles to go to our first stop. At this point we're currently on the Great Western Main Line, which runs from Bristol Temple Meads through to London Paddington, and we'll be turning away from the Great Western Main Line just after we've left Bath Spa Station. We're now coming up on the first of 2 tunnels between here and our first stop. One thing I unfortunately noticed with this route is that tunnel occlusions don't seem to have been applied, so whilst the track is somewhat dark inside the tunnel, the cab doesn't get at all dark, which doesn't look quite right. Now that we've reached the end of this second tunnel, the speed limit's going up to 100 miles per hour for trains that are permitted to go faster than our particular train, and we've got around 2 miles to go to our stop. Just cutting the power back now to ensure that we don't break our maximum permitted speed. And at the next signal, we've then got around 1¼ miles to go. The footbridge you can see just coming up. I'm now going to idle the power to allow the train to coast. I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop as we reach the end of the light left-hand curve that we're currently on. So I'm just looking for the end of the curve, and then the moment we reach the end, which is now, I'm now making a step 2 brake application. Due to the autumn season, you can see there we've got massive wheel slip for a moment. Thankfully it appears to be correcting itself, but the speedometer certainly dropping to 0 there. It just shows how the autumn season affects the braking. In reality, it's often due to leaf fall. I know a lot of people think that leaves on the line is an excuse for late running trains, but it's actually not an excuse. It really is a problem for trains when we've got leaves on the line, as it causes quite an increase in wheel slip as the leaves get mushed down by the trains. But because we're in the autumn season, with this extra wheel slip, I'm having to brake earlier than I normally would to ensure that I'm able to slow down in time. I didn't see any stop markers at any stations on this route, so the stopping positions is just a bit of guesswork. I'm going to stop a little bit beyond this footbridge here towards the end of the platform. And so this should hopefully be the correct place to stop. Departing away from Keynsham, the starting speed limit is still currently 100 miles per hour, or 75 miles per hour for this train, with just under 6 miles to go to our next stop, which is Oldfield Park. So I managed to throttle there okay for accelerating away from Keynsham, so there wasn't actually any wheel slip quite like I was expecting. And now we're just going to be able to have a straight through run with no speed limit changes between here and the next stop. At the short tunnel that's just approaching, we've then got 4 miles to go. As we get towards 75 miles per hour, I'm going to cut the power back to notch 4 to maintain the speed. With notch 4 you're accelerating, but just very, very slightly. So if we do go to 75, then I'll just cut back to notch 3 for maybe 20-30 seconds, and then back up to notch 4 once again. Just step down to notch 3 of power for a moment, so I'm just going to let us in notch 3 until we probably drop to 74 before coming back up to notch 4. The landmarks that I'm looking out for now is a series of 2 tunnels, so we've got 2 more tunnels between here and Oldfield Park. At the second tunnel we've then got 1 mile to go. Just past the second tunnel now with around 1 mile to go. I'm shutting off the power here. We've got a Morpeth board warning for an upcoming 90 mile per hour speed restriction. The 90 mile per hour speed limit comes into force in a moment, and at that point we've got 2/3 of a mile to go. So I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop just as we're passing this 90 mile per hour speed post. So I made a step 2 brake application. We had immediate wheel slip there. Seems to have rectified itself for the moment, and hopefully we're going to be able to slow down in time. I can see the platforms coming up just ahead. I don't really want to be entering the platforms any faster than probably 25 miles per hour to ensure that we can stop in time. I'm aiming to stop here halfway along the platform, which to me looked like it could be the correct stopping point. Probably coming in a little bit quick because of the wheel slip there affecting our braking. In fact, I'm making a step 3 brake application to bring our speed down a little quicker. Now let's go back down to step 2 and step 1. In fact, I'm going to release just for a moment, now back up to step 1, and we should be stopping in about the right place. Departing away from Oldfield Park, the speed limit is currently 90 miles per hour, though it is very soon dropping to 40 miles per hour, with just over 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Bath Spa. idling the power at 45 miles per hour. I can see the 40 mile per hour speed post coming up just ahead. So I'm going to apply the brakes now, just into step 1 to bring our speed down in time. And so we're now down to 40 miles per hour, and I'm just going to allow the train to coast along here. At the 40 mile per hour speed post, we've got around a third of a mile to go to our stop. I'm going to brake in a moment once we reach an underbridge which is coming up. So we're now at the underbridge, and I can see the platforms coming up for Bath Spur. So I'm now making a step 2 brake application to bring our speed down. Here at Bath, I'm aiming to stop around halfway along the platform. And so I'm hoping that this is roughly the correct place to stop. For anyone who's more familiar with this route, please do let me know how accurate I am at guessing the stopping points. Departing away from Bath Spa, the starting speed limit here is 40 miles per hour, with just over 7 miles to go to our next stop, which is Freshford. Just got a little bit of wheel slip there, and the speed limit is now going up to 60 miles per hour. Speed limit is now increasing once again to 75 miles per hour. The speed limit is now going up to 100 miles per hour, and at the 100 mile per hour speed post, we've got 1 mile to go to the junction where we turn off the Great Western Main Line onto, I believe it's called the Heart of Wessex line towards Westbury, and there is a 40 mile per hour speed restriction at that junction. So I'm now going to idle the power here at that next signal, and as we approach the following signal, which is the one immediately before the junction, I'm going to brake for the upcoming 40 mile per hour speed restriction. So I can see that signal coming up now, so I'm now going to put the brakes on to ensure that we do slow down in time. And you'll see on this signal that there's a feather indication to the right, which indicates that we are crossing the junction ahead to the right onto the route towards Westbury. So now we're down to 40 miles per hour. I'm just going to allow the train to coast at this point. The speed limit is now increasing to 50 miles per hour. So now I'm just going to go up to full power to accelerate up towards that. And then there should be further increases to 60 and then finally 70 miles per hour. We're now passing the 60 mile per hour speed post. We're now passing the 70 mile per hour speed post with just over 3.5 miles to go to our next stop. Now we've reached 70 miles per hour. I've just put the throttle into notch 3. That should maintain us at around this speed, but we'll adjust the throttle if we start accelerating or decelerating. Whistle board just there, which came immediately after the signal. We had around 2 miles to go. What I'm looking out for now is a whistle board immediately before an underbridge. At that point, we've then got just under a mile to go, and I'm going to idle the power to allow the train to coast. So here's the whistle board immediately before the underbridge. Less than a mile to go now, and so I'm now looking out for a post on the opposite track for the opposite direction, and as we pass that post, that's actually the braking point I'm going to use. I'm going to make a step 2 brake application. So just past the post there, I'm making a step 2 brake application now and getting some nasty wheel slip as before. If the wheel slip does affect you too badly, you can use sand, which is the X key, which just provides a bit of extra grip when you've got sand there between the metal wheel and the metal rail. It looks like our speed is coming off quite nicely. And here at Freshford station, I'm aiming to stop around halfway along the platform. I'm going to stop possibly just slightly beyond that, but this should be hopefully the correct stopping point. Departing away from Freshford, the speed limit here is 70 miles per hour with just under a mile to go to the next stop, which is Avoncliffe. Bit of wheel slip there as I tried to go into full power. Hopefully that should rectify itself now. Normally when you're doing around 25 to 30 miles per hour you are able to go into full power without getting wheel slip. Driving along here now, I'm going to idle the power at just over 40 miles per hour. I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop at the end of this left-hand curve. Avoncliffe station is a particularly short platform as it only fits one coach in, so you really don't want to be entering the platform any faster than probably 15 miles per hour. So I've now shut off the power to allow the train to coast, and I'm preparing to brake now for our stop as soon as I can see the end of this curve. So I'm now making an immediate step 2 brake application. You can see the platforms coming up just ahead. Once again we've got some wheel slip. I'm just applying a little bit of sand here to try and help, just due to how slippy it is, with the hopes that I can actually stop at this station due to the short platform. And in fact I'm going to brake even harder than I normally would just to try and bring our speed down. And so now we should hopefully be slow enough to stop. Indeed we are, so I'm just going to reduce the braking now and just come towards the end, brake slightly more. And just as the platform end disappears, that should be the correct stopping point. Departing away from Avoncliffe, the speed limit is still 70 miles per hour with just under 1.5 miles to go to our next stop, which is Bradford-on-Avon. I must say, when slowing down at stops on this particular run while recording, I'm getting a lot more wheel slip than I did on the practice runs for some reason, so it's throwing me off a little, and I'm having to drive maybe with a bit more caution than even I did before, whereas when I was braking on the practice runs I only got major wheel slip once, maybe twice, but on this run it's happening at nearly every stop, so it seems that the wheel slip is quite random on this train within Train Simulator. I'm looking out now for the next signal, at which point I'm going to idle the power to allow the train to coast, and the signal is coming up just here. So I'm going to be idling at around 50 miles per hour. And then there's a foot crossing that should be coming up shortly. I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop once we reach that foot crossing, or certainly once the foot crossing is within my line of sight. So just reached the foot crossing there. I've now got the brakes on for our stop at Bradford-on-Avon. I'll get my words right in a minute. See the platform coming up just ahead. Here at Bradford-on-Avon, I'm aiming to stop at the end of the platform. I brake maybe slightly too early there, but due to the wheel slip that we've been getting, it's probably better to brake slightly too early than slightly too late. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Bradford-on-Avon, the speed limit is still 70 miles per hour, with around 3 1/3 of a mile to go to the next stop, which is Trowbridge. We've now got a warning for an upcoming 40 mile per hour speed restriction, which is 2/3 of a mile from the warning board there. So I'm just going to idle the power at this point. I'm going to brake for the upcoming 40 mile per hour speed restriction as we reach the end of this left-hand curve. Realised there that I actually sounded the whistle a little bit late, I think, for the whistle post that we passed a moment ago. And I've also slowed down slightly too early here, but you can see the 40 mile per hour speed post is just coming up. I'm just going to allow the train to coast here at 40 miles per hour until we're able to accelerate further. As you can see, we've got quite a sharp curve here. And then just after this curve, the speed limit will be going up to 60 miles per hour. And at the 60 mile per hour speed post, we've got 1 1/4 miles to go to our stop. Increased the power already as we're just about to pass the 60 mile per hour speed post, and we'd slowed down quite a lot, so I realised that by the time we passed it then we'll be clear to accelerate, and indeed we are. So we're now accelerating up towards the 60 mile per hour speed restriction. However, we're now on an uphill gradient of 1 in 104, which is severely impeding our ability to accelerate. So I'm going to accelerate to around 48 miles per hour, and then I'm going to cut the power back. We've now got a warning for an upcoming 50 mile per hour speed restriction, which comes into force just before the platform at Trowbridge station. I've now shut off the power at just below 50 miles per hour, and I'm looking out for an underbridge just ahead. As soon as I can see that bridge, I'm going to have the brakes on for Trowbridge. You can now see the bridge there. You can just see the dark outline of the wall. We're now crossing the bridge. I've got the brakes in step 2, the platform's just coming up, and I'm aiming to stop around halfway along the platform. The platform's actually slightly staggered as well, so you can see the platform for the downline there just a little bit before the platform here on the upline. And we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing away from Trowbridge, the speed limit here is 50 miles per hour, though it is quickly going back up to 70 miles per hour. And at this point we've got around 4 miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Westbury. We're getting quite a bit of wheel slip there, trying to depart away from Trowbridge, so I cut the power back to notch 3 for a moment. We're now back in notch 4. The speed limit is now going up to 70 miles per hour, and I'm going to try and step up the power to increase our acceleration. We're going to be on an uphill gradient for most of the way from here through to Westbury now, which will affect our acceleration rate, and in fact we will be able to get to 70 miles per hour, but probably only just before we've got to start slowing down again. What I'm looking out for along here now is a warning for an upcoming 40 mile per hour speed restriction. Once we reach that Morpeth board warning, we've got half a mile to go to the speed limit. Reached 70 miles per hour. I've just cut the power back slightly. We actually reached 70 a bit quicker than I was expecting to do so. Because of the uphill gradient, notch 5 of power, in fact, we were just losing speed there, so I've just brought us back up to notch 6 of power to try and maintain as close to 70 as I can. The gradient is in fact steepening along here to 1 in 120. I think it might have just done so, as we're still losing speed in notch 6, so I'm now in full power notch 7 to try and maintain the speed. The 40 mile per hour speed warning should be coming up very shortly, at which point I'm going to idle the power. So just idled the power at this point. We've got a junction coming up in a second, and once we reach the junction, we're now reaching it, and now making a step 2 brake application for the upcoming 40 mile per hour speed restriction. It seems that wheel slip has other ideas about how quickly we're going to be slowing down. So I just applied a bit of sand, and then I increased the braking up as high as step 3 to ensure that we were down to 40 in time, and we're now entering the 40 mile per hour speed zone. So I'm just going to allow the train to coast along here for a moment, and we should be seeing the platforms at Westbury coming up just ahead. Indeed, I can see the platforms now. So let's just make a step 1 brake application to bring our speed down a bit more. And here at Westbury Station, I'm aiming to stop just before the end of the platform roof. In fact, we've got a train to our left-hand side, which I placed in. You wouldn't probably normally have it there, but I placed it in as a helpful guide to remind me where the correct stopping point would be. Just reduced to step 1 braking, just for a gentle stop, and we should be stopped in just about the right place. So here we are. Welcome to Westbury. Thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, please don't forget that for the latest channel updates, you can find me on Facebook with a link to my Facebook page in the description of this video. And if you'd like to sponsor this channel on Patreon, then please visit the Patreon link, which is in the video description. And also in the video description, I've put the links to where you can purchase both the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 150 and also the Just Trains South Western Expressways route. Once again, thank you for watching.